Everyone, welcome to Lincoln County Courthouse. This meeting of the Lincoln County Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. This meeting is being streamed live, and when adjourned and posted, it'll be available at any time at lincolncountysd.org. The order of events tonight will be as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce the agenda item and present a summary of the staff report. The applicant will then be asked to explain their proposal in further detail and to answer any questions from the County Planning Commission. I will then open the floor to public comment, first for persons in support of the application and then for persons in opposition of the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name and address and speak into the microphone. Please limit comments to less than 5 minutes. We have a lot of agenda items tonight, and so that will be something that we're going to be keeping a pretty close eye on. Lastly, decisions on rezone applications will be scheduled for an additional public hearing during an upcoming Board of Commissioners meeting. Decisions on conditional use permit applications may be appealed to the County Board of Commissioners by submitting a letter to the County Planning and Zoning Office within 5 business days. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Green?
Present.
Commissioner Jungling?
Here.
Commissioner Boots?
Here.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Here.
Commissioner Scott is also here. We'll now ask for a motion and a second for the approval of last month's meeting minutes, unless there's any changes that anybody can see.
I'll make a motion to approve Jungling.
Second, Sweeter.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, now we'll look for a motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda, unless there's any changes, Mr. Brown?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
So move Green.
Second, Boots.
okay, it's been moved, properly seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda's approved. The next item is public input on non-agenda items. So if there's anybody in the crowd that wants to come up and speak on, to anything that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do that. All right, seeing none, we will move to our first item of business. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Toby Brown, representing County Planning. This first item before you this evening is an application for a conditional use permit. This will be for a Class C CAFO, which is 999 animal units. Subject property is a little over 6 miles to the northwest of the town of Hudson. Subject property is zoned A1 agricultural, as is all surrounding adjacent properties. Subject property is improved. It is essentially an old farmstead with an open cattle lot on it, as well as a 2,400 head nursery swine barn on it. There's just some shots of it. So the applicant did submit an application to the county for a Class C CAFO, which would allow 999 animal units on the subject property. The staff analysis, and I won't go through every detail of it, but the staff did analyze the application with the criteria that was listed in the zoning regulations. There is a number of criteria for an applicant pursuing a concentrated animal feeding operation, as well as most applicants, as this applicant did, is they hired a consultant to assist with the application materials. So a little bit of background on this. The applicant is operating an open cattle feedlot as well as a 2,400 head nursery barn. The applicant wishes to propose an expansion of the open cattle feedlot, which should be identified in that area that's highlighted on the map. With that, that does require a conditional use permit because he's exceeding the 499 animal units on the property. So with that, the applicant did have to submit a number of materials to our office. I'll back up kind of one of the most recent requirements or stipulations is a South Dakota OFT and order footprint tool. So the applicant did work with staff from SDSU to develop that tool. One of the things that's always come up in previous applications is if we utilize all of the existing operation. Yes, that analysis did include the existing nursery swine building as well as the existing livestock that were on the property, so it did encompass everything. What I would also state, this is kind of the first time that I'm aware of that we did have multiple species on an application like this, or existing and then proposed with it. So there was some additional requirements that we did have the applicant look at. Farmers Co-op Society did do an analysis of the nutrient management plan. They did submit to us materials documenting that there is sufficient land application for those nutrients on the property, as well as in reviewing those, they did meet all of the requirements as far as setbacks that are there. Typically in a nutrient management plan, we do ask that that be updated annually if fields change and those different types of things. As well as there is standard stipulations within the ordinance as far as setbacks. For this size of an operation, the setback from a dwelling is 1,320 feet. The closest property would be a little over 1,600 feet directly to the east of this property. So it does meet all of the necessary setback requirements per the ordinance. Another ordinance requirement is that the property be a total of 5 acres in size. This property is a little over 21 acres in size, so it does meet those requirements. So I'm not going to go through all the specific criteria that we went through, but those are kind of hitting the major points that would be ones in the past that the public would be curious about. So staff did review this application, did have a number of discussions with the applicant and with the applicant's consultant. Again, all of the analysis would be in the staff report. Whoop, I got jumped that one, the wrong one there. Do this one here. So there's, again, a number of criteria that staff did analyze within this application. So staff does determine that the applicant does meet the minimum standards for a concentrated animal feeding operation, Class C operation. Does recommend approval of this application with the 5 conditions that were listed in the staff report. Did have a number of calls related to this application. A lot of it just questions on what was being proposed, if there was any other things associated with it. Did have a couple letters of support that we did place before you this evening on it. The neighbor to the west, I believe, is one of the one of the individuals that submitted a letter of support with it. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the applicant is in attendance this evening as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown? I have one.
Okay.
Does the current permit require a nutrient management plan?
No, so there is no conditional use permit on the property currently. It's a Class D for the nursery swine
Okay.
operation. Yeah, so there is no conditions on that permit.
So this would be an addition and over and above than what's already happening?
It's a requirement of the conditional use, yes. Yep.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Brown? All right, thank you,
Okay,
Toby.
thank you.
All right, I'll now ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
My name is Harold Floyd Jr., and my address is 29020 482nd Avenue. I am the applicant. I guess the reason I'm here tonight is basically to try to preserve the family farm. And both of my children have high interest in farming, and they're with me every day. So I guess I would just like to basically kind of solidify that, and in the future, if I basically improve my existing lot, in order to be efficient, there's room to add more head as I basically improve.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I do. So from
Yeah,
what I
go ahead,
understand,
Mr. Green.
what you're saying is, so you're not jumping straight up to the maximum capacity right now?
No, that's not the current plan.
Okay.
Basically, I'd like to, as I improve, basically add accordingly then. And I do have, it is on well water, so there's no rural water problems. And I do have a guy I hired for basically fly control and any pest control that would be a concern.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Junglin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How long has this family or this farm been in your business, and how long have you been there?
I've been there I bought it 12 years ago. I started feeding cattle there 10 years ago. And I guess a little bit about myself. I grew up a couple miles away. We fed cattle on a family farm there. I went and worked for the vet clinic in Rock Valley for 15 years, and then I decided basically I was getting too busy with what I had going on once I put up the nursery, so I retired from the vet clinic and currently farm full-time with my 2 kids and wife.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? The only one I have, Mr. Floyd, so currently, just by looking at the map, it looks like, you'd be just so everybody's aware, you're gonna be adding yards to the north of your existing yards, just to the east of the hog building?
Correct. That's where, yeah, that would be the part that I would look to improve in the future.
Is there cattle yards there now, existing?
No, there's actually feed piles there
Okay.
right now.
So it'd be just a new expansion, or that's where you would go with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Very good. All right. If nobody else has anything, all right. Very good. If we have questions later, we might need you to come back up
All right,
and
thanks.
answer a few. Thank you. Okay, anyone else in favor of the application want to come forward? Speak. Okay. State your name and address for the record.
Dave Koopsma, 28946 482nd Avenue, Canton. So I'm a neighbor to Harold, and I see no reason why. To me, it's not a big deal. I think he should be allowed to do what he needs to do to make a living. So that's I know he's a good man, and he's real conscientious, so I think he should get the go-ahead, so,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the application? All right, Mr. Caskey. You state your name and address for us?
Yes, I'm Terry Caskey, 47962 294th Street. Yeah, I got to know Harold over the last few years. He's helped me out with some of my livestock stuff. And he's very conscious with livestock. He's very good at it. When I go by his place and stuff, he's always out working. You see the family out there working. He's very conscious of what he does. It seems like he meets all the hoop and hurdles that he had to go through, getting everything permitted to do what he needed to do to get it done. And, no, I think it's a good fit for Harold if he wants to try to improve himself and to be more efficient. In this time, day and age, that's what a person needs to do to stay in business. I think we all know that. I don't care if it's a farmer or a grocery store, or restaurant, whatever it is. That's something you just need to do in today's environment. So, I think it's a good deal for a young farmer trying to improve himself. Thank
Very good. Thanks, Terry. Anyone else want to speak in favor? If not, I've got two emails that I'd like to read into record as support. And when I'm done with those, if somebody decides they want to come up and say something, we'll give you one last shot at it. So the first message that I'm going to read into record was an online submission form, 3757. It was from Arlen and Cheryl Olson, 5109 South Sweetbriar Drive, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57108. And it says, in regards to Plan Use 0031-2024, Harold and Madeline Floyd, we own the property directly west of theirs. We support their efforts and their right to use their property for agricultural purposes, including a cattle feeding operation. Thank you, Arlen and Cheryl Olson. The next is a letter from Farmers Co-op Society. It's from Jeff Coops from Farmers Co-op Society. and it's addressed to the Lincoln County Planning and Zoning Commission. It says, "My name is Jeff Coops. I am the Sustainability and Nutrient Management Specialist for Farmers Co-op Society. This letter is regarding the public hearing taking place Monday, June 17th, 2024, involving Harold Jr. and Madeline Floyd and their application for a conditional use permit to operate a Class C CAFO. I will be out of town the day of the public hearing, but wanted to express my feedback on this application. I have been working with Harold Jr. and Madeline for the past number of months as they are looking at the possibility of expanding their cattle feedlot. They would like to expand their business to allow them more opportunities in the cattle industry and to allow them to get their children involved in the business. This is a true family farm and will be a great opportunity for them. Harold Jr. and I have worked together developing a nutrient management plan, reviewing separation distances, having SDSU prepare an odor footprint on the site, and reviewing and documenting all requirements for the CUP application. We have worked with Toby Brown, who has helped us with the application, and feel we have done our due diligence to prove that this site is a good location for such expansion. Harold has always run his operation with great care. He is cognizant of the nutrients available in the manure generated and utilizes these to the best of his ability as an organic fertilizer on local farmland. He is aware of his neighbors and does his best to alleviate any nuisance issues such as odor, flies, etc. Keeping young farmers involved and flourishing in our local economies is important, as agriculture is still the backbone of this country. Because of this, I urge the board to vote in favor of this application. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Jeff Coops." Okay. With that, does anybody else want to come up in favor? If not, we'll close the floor to people that are in favor of this application, and we'll open it to anybody that is in opposition of the application. Would they like to come forward and speak? State your name and address for the record.
Vance Mirabal, 48272 291st Street. I live on the same section as that, in the basically kitty corner to the southeast of their property. So I'm about a mile from their property. Just some comments that I wanted to make mostly. One is that I understand that with this Class C operation, they did not have to have their waste management plan submitted for review by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. I don't know if there's any way that that could be done. I know it's not a requirement that it be done, but there's a creek that runs right through their property. It's just right beside where their current operation, their open operation is. That property, that creek then runs a mile and about a half down to the state ground, which is a state open area, which there's a large pond there. Right now it's dry after the last 2 years, but normally there's a fairly substantial amount of water in that, and it's something that I know that every fall I spend time down there hunting and such. And there is concern that if there's waste that or anything that gets down that way, that there could cause problems with that pond, as well as then that pond goes out to, and it drains out of there and goes into the Patty Creek, which then goes down to the Sioux River. I have some environmental concerns that maybe that should be looked at because of that close proximity to that field, and with some of the large rains that we've had over the last 10 years or so, I know that area has swollen and it's gone up, and it seems like into that open area in the past 10 years or so. Another item is one that Toby had mentioned. Their current operation includes both swine as well as cattle. If they have a swine operation of about 2,500, under the CAFO requirements, I think that would be, as I understood, I think what he said was a nursery swine operation. If that's what it is, the Class C for that is 5,000 to 999. So if it's just under the 2,500, that would be basically a 1/4 of what could be put in there under that CAFO requirement. So if he's gonna continue to have swine there, I think that should limit or cut back the amount of livestock that should be able to be allowed there by that 1/4 amount than if he's gonna have both of them, that combine those things should then reduce the number of livestock that should be allowed there. So instead of 999, maybe 749 or 750. I think that, in these, obviously I would prefer not to have it within a mile of me, a large operation like that, but I understand people, I don't have problems with farmers having cattle in the area. When we moved out there in 2001, we've been out there a little over 20 years. We've got neighbors half a mile to the west of us, the Van Norts, that have a small livestock operation. I think one of the other family members, maybe, or a relative of theirs, the Floyds, have a mile west of his place. They have a cattle operation, and if I walk outside of my house, I can hear their cattle in the evening because there's no tree barrier between us and them, and so I hear their cattle mooing and such, and I'm, but I have never really had any issues with the smell from that property necessarily. I can smell from the Van Norts when I get a west or a east wind from the east, but nothing terrible because their operation is fairly small. And so I do have some concern about what the waste management plan exactly is, and if it hasn't been reviewed by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. If that could be done, I would certainly like to see that done.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Douglas Campen. I live 48255 290th Street. I'm a neighbor to the east. My concerns are waste management also. The creek that runs through our properties, I adjoin, and downstream, there's 3 Floyds that are around me, and Harold is to the west. There's a Floyd to the north, and it's on the same creek. And there's his brother Carlin on east of me, and it's on the same creek. And it does have heavy rains once in a while. And I know they try to control the manure, but when the creek comes up, there's no stopping it. And that's my concerns. And maybe this doesn't have nothing to do with it, but to the east of me, this Floyd, they haul their manure out to the field, and the manure pile is running halfway down the hill towards the creek. And that's kind of concerning. It's raw manure. It's not compost. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hold on a second. I can't do more than one thing at a time. It's one of my many setbacks. Does anybody else want to speak in opposition to the application? I guess is where we're at. If not, we're going to close the floor to public comment, and just, I guess I want to give the board the opportunity to ask the applicant a few questions if they have any. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant before we make a motion? No?
Really don't.
Mr. Green? Okay, very good. So now we'll entertain a motion for approval in a second, and then we can have some discussion.
We'll make a motion for approval with the 5 conditions listed.
Second, Green?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll we'll now have some discussion. I think one of the things we should have some discussion on is, Mr. Marable made a point, and I believe it is something we could do with an added condition, is to, maybe, add a condition to require a state permit along with the nutrient management plan that they're having. I don't know that I'm in favor of it, but we could add that condition. As we asked Mr. Brown, currently the operation doesn't have a nutrient management plan, so just by the approval of this application, that does become a requirement, so it's one more better thing, it's something more that they're having to do than they aren't currently doing. So I don't know if we need the state to oversee that, if they're already doing it, because it's my assumption that would have to be turned into the planning office, Mr. Brown, to stay in compliance with the application or with the CUP. Or you want to come up and explain how that process would work?
So the first part is any condition, I wouldn't say they have to get a state permit. That wouldn't, we wouldn't want to require that. But
Right.
you could require that staff does notify the Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources about the manure nutrient plan. We could submit to them for comment on that
Okay.
plan, yeah. So they have
But you
jurisdiction
get,
over,
you get this manure management plan annually?
yeah, if it's
Yeah.
updated, yep.
Yep.
Yep, and then you could direct, say, an added condition that directs staff to supply DANR, it's not DNR, it's DANR, with the nutrient management plan. I think be supportive
Okay.
of that, yeah.
That'd be, yeah. And I think that would, some of the concerns we heard, that sure could take care of those as well.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
okay, very good.
Through that process, what concerns would that alleviate, though? If we're just submitting it to the state for comment, there's really no actionable authority, correct? Is that?
So, they would typically, how it typically works is if, they would get notified if there's any complaints about potential water contamination. So our office doesn't have jurisdiction over waterways, DNR would. We would submit it to them and, they would address it to look at it, see if they have any concerns with the water pollution part of it. But, or if they have any recommendations for Harold to maybe berm or do some of those different types of things. But I would defer us to doing that, but more us submitting it to Daner for their comment on it.
Basically to get their direction and their expertise, and then have the planning office administer it. I think that's what you're saying, is it?
Yeah, and then as part of that sixth condition, you could say, direct the staff to submit to Daner for review, and then report back to the planning commission.
Okay.
So that we'd report back to you and, publicly and tell people what, if anything was identified, so. Okay?
All right, very good. Thanks, Toby. Does that make sense, what Mr. Brown just explained? So, I mean, that is something, if we want to, we'll have to add as a sixth condition before we, and vote on it, I guess, before we move on and do anything with the main motion that's on the floor. And I guess we don't have to wait for that. I mean, and at the same time, does anybody have any comment? Just on the application in general?
I'll make a comment, I guess.
Sure.
At this point, there's a reason that the requirements are what they are for Class C CAFO, right? If we then start to, I don't want to use the word regulate, but, regulate anytime there's a stream anywhere near it, we're starting, there's a reason that this is the requirement for Class C, and this falls under the parameters for Class C. Because of that, I would be in support of it with the 5 conditions. I
Okay.
guess, so.
Very good. Any other comments?
I think probably adding, just asking the DNR to look at it is probably not a bad thing. I don't know if that's a concern for Mr. Floyd or not, but it's probably not a bad thing when there are the rains that, we sometimes have. It would alleviate a concern for those that are concerned about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeter. Mr. Jungling, you were about to say something.
Yeah, that always gets me in trouble.
Let's turn your mic off.
Yeah, honestly, I it's hard to see a smaller operation get bigger and one that you started from scratch. Now everything's the larger farms and corporate and all that. And so I really give you credit for how hard you worked and everything you've done to get to this point. And also addition that meet all the setbacks, every requirement that we have as a county. You've had some good neighbors say you take care of your place and all that, so. If we want to add the sixth condition, I guess I wouldn't say no, if it helps some of the neighbors and related to the stream, but if there's not in there, I'd still go vote for a yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I guess I'd just echo I'm gonna echo Commissioner Green, and my feelings on livestock operations in Lincoln County is that we have, quite a set of rules to do it and setbacks, more so than any other business, or anything that happens in this county. It's actually like a double, it's like a double deal. You meet all the permitted things, but yet you still have to have a public hearing for conditional use. And so I think they're quite stringent, and so when we meet them, I have a hard time going against that. And for now, those are the setbacks that we have for all the different classes. And so I think when you meet them, and in most cases, when we get these, the applicant has actually went over and above some requirements that they didn't need to, just to help the process along, and I think for stewardship of their own operation. And in this case, it's happened again. So I'm in support of it. I'm with Mr. Jungley, and I'll be in support of it either way. If we as a board decide that condition number 6 should be added, I would also support that. So, before I call the roll, is there anybody that wants to make a motion to add condition number 6?
I would like to add, I would add the commission, or add the condition number 6.
Okay, so we've got a motion to add a 6th condition. Is there a second?
I'll second Boots.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Do we understand what the motion's for, everyone? Okay, we'll call the roll. Mr. Green?
So we're voting specifically on adding the additional condition.
Correct.
No.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
No.
Commissioner Scott is, I'm going to say yes. So with that, the 6th condition has been added, Mr. Brown. Now, does anybody have any extra comment? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and call the roll on the main motion, which is approval of the application. Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes. So congratulations. Thanks for everybody that was here, and all your comments. And please feel free to stick around. We got 7 more of these. So it's, like I was telling somebody earlier, you can't get this kind of entertainment for free on a Monday night, so. Okay, Mr. Brown, number 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This next item is an application for a conditional use permit. This is to exceed 10,000 square feet of warehouse building space on the subject property. Applicants requesting 50,400 square feet. Subject property is adjacent to the city of T. Essentially, the city of T is just to the north of this property, city limits are. Subject property is Zone C Commercial. This property was rezoned, I believe, in 2022. Planning Commission recommended it. It finally got approved by the Board of Commissioners in 2023, carried over to January of that year. So subject property was at one time one large piece adjacent to the east. If you recall, that property adjacent to the east, the county did approve a contractor shop on that property, as well as there is another building that's currently under construction on that building. RBS Sanitation operates out of that structure. So the landowner also did submit, and I'll ramble here a little bit more, but the applicant did, during the rezone process, did submit a subdivision plan to the City of T. City of T has subdivision authority. They did approve that. There was development engineering plans that were submitted on this property when it was rezoned. Those were not approved by the City Council of the City of T. Subject property is undeveloped, does not have any structures on it currently. That's a picture of the site there to the east. So as I mentioned, the applicant did submit a concept plan with the application or site plan, did identify that they would be placing these structures on the property. At the time, if you recall, when the application was submitted for the rezone, the applicant at that time, who was the landowner, and the landowner, I believe, is still involved with this petition, the landowner did propose that it would be more retail on that site, and then there would be some storage on the site that would be associated with what the retail was on there. So that is kind of what the City of T had always been kind of communicated with on that process. So staff did again receive the application. We did have some extensive discussions with the applicant. Did have some extensive discussions with staff from the City of T as well. And I jumped it again there, sorry about that.
We get excited too.
Yeah,
Toby, you as well go to number 8.
Yeah, no, we're already there, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. Not there yet, yeah. So we did have some extensive discussions with the City of T. What I'll mention is the City of T is currently updating their comprehensive plans, so they're taking more a look at these areas. The City of T does not feel that this application fits with what their vision of that area is. It does make it a little complicated for us because at this stage, the rezoning's done. The property is zoned commercial. As part of the commercial zoning district, staff could actually issue a building permit today for 10,000 square feet of this type of a building. But because he's proposing it to exceed it, it does have to go to that level with a conditional use permit. So what does make this, again, additionally complicated is, and this happens in a lot of our jurisdictions, including the City of Sioux Falls, is that the City of T would not allow this type of use within a commercial zoning district. So they would typically zone this general business. This type of warehousing would not be allowed within that zoning district, so there is somewhat of a conflict there with that. But as noted in the staff analysis, this request as submitted does meet the standards for warehousing, except that it does need the conditional use permit for it. I did have extensive discussions with both the city and the applicant today. I know that representatives from the city are in this meeting as well to comment, as well as the applicant as well too. So as far as the zoning part of it, which is really where we're at, is staff does feel that this application does meet those requirements. As far as what T's, again, we have an informal joint jurisdiction with the City of T where we do allow them to review site plans, and we have held up applications if the site plan had not been approved by the City of T. But at this stage, I guess the City of T doesn't support the conditional use permit because of the land use associated with it. Again, I would point out that, and I'm not saying good or bad with that, but the City of T does not have joint zoning with us to be a part of the zoning part of it. But they do have site plan approval, so it does create a conflict. And as always, staff wants to see a unanimous type, that the city does approve of this as well when we're doing the site plan approval of it. So without rambling, I guess, is that before you in the staff analysis, that staff does feel that this application does meet the Lincoln County zoning ordinance requirements and should be approved on that basis. But understanding that there's a much bigger thing with working with the City of T, which we've long-standing worked with them directly to make sure that any development does meet their requirements in that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
I do have a few, but does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Brown?
Toby, you did a great job.
Well, this isn't an easy one. I mean, we're trying to work through the different parts of it, but again, we fully support, this is T's growth area. This needs to be within their part. What makes it a challenge is that, I guess if we had better recommendations, it'd be that the applicant would have annexed this into the city and it would have gone through that development process with it. Because we certainly want to work together as a team and do those types of things. It's just conflicting zoning and land use really with it, so, okay?
Yeah, so, I guess the questions I had, so ultimately, will T have the final approval on the site plan?
So T, we have an informal agreement with T to do site plan approval before we do building permit approval. And so, yes, that we would probably not issue a building permit until such time as we get an approved site plan from the city of T. And that's part of what condition number 1 is on that.
So if T never approves it, we can approve the conditional use permit. If T doesn't approve the site plan, it just sits.
Well,
What do you think's gonna happen?
so that's a little complicated. So this has happened to us before with City of Harrisburg, but those required replats. So this will not require a replat. So typically, like Harrisburg has held up development on the replat portion of it, so they couldn't subdivide it essentially.
Sure.
This one is really just a site plan, and so we've never been tested on what would occur with that, so I can't give you a great answer on what that's gonna be. I would hope that the applicant and the city T would be able to come to terms on that, but I can't speak to that, so.
But in order to let that process move on, the conditional use permit needs to be approved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, just second question is, and we get, we talk about this more and more and more as we look into the future. So if we do this on a short-term basis, inevitably, I'm assuming this property will be annexed by somebody, some municipality. What happens then?
Well, I mean,
If it's not to their standards?
yeah, I mean, that's gonna happen repeatedly in these areas. It becomes
Right.
non-conforming. So they can continue to operate, but at some point in time, if it burnt down, blew down, it might
Oh.
not be able to be rebuilt.
I got you.
It'd have to be in accordance with the regulations.
But it isn't like, gotta tear down and make everything conforming?
No, yeah, they can continue to use it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But with that, we need to be completely cognizant of it and try to not have as many of those as we can.
And staff tries to, I think the most important thing here is staff routinely tells the applicants that this could happen, right?
Right.
That you could become non-conforming, and then in that case, as such, is that you would be able to operate, but you might not be able to expand, and you might not be able to rebuild. Those are the two things we typically tell people.
Yep.
But we can't control that part of it, so.
Right. Would there be any, I guess my last question for you, Mr. Brown, would there be any negative effects on the city of T if the conditional use permit is approved currently, and then we let the applicant and the city work together to try to come to an agreement?
Yeah, I'll defer that to the city.
Okay.
I mean,
They're here.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that in the past, but this is one where I think they've really spoken up about the land use part of it.
Got it.
Which is what this is, so they have a concern with the land use part of it. So yes, if this does get approved, it puts them in a tough spot to have to approve a site plan that they may or may not like.
I understand.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Brown?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So historically, and I believe maybe it's based on our joint jurisdiction that we have with Sioux Falls, we typically put in a condition there that you must meet all Sioux Falls current, regulations associated with water, sewer, and all that stuff. Is that not a condition in here because we don't have a joint agreement with the city of T? Or am I missing something? Isn't that typically, like, when we're approving in the joint jurisdiction with Sioux Falls, I know we have quite a bit of conversation and debate regarding around the fact that they must meet the city of Sioux Falls's current standards. So why not T? Why not that condition on this one?
That's a good question.
So the standard that we typically recommend with Sioux Falls from the county standpoint is that the city reviews the development plans. Because in Sioux Falls' case, they don't leave city limits. And so we put a condition in there to make them leave city limits, so they review those different types of things. On this particular one, even with their site plan approval on it, if it was a replat or a plat of the property, we could hold them to those things, but with the site plan approval, technically even City of Teal admit this, is that it's really just guidance for us to enforce that part of it. And so, they can't provide, to the best of my knowledge, they can't provide utilities at this time to that property. They're working on that, I believe. So we wouldn't want to get in the middle of that part of it, but, we could certainly say that I guess I wouldn't say anything more than what we put as the conditions on there with this application, yeah.
Thanks, Toby.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing none, thanks, Toby. We'll ask the applicant to come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
Corey Gronwald, 27404 470th Avenue, Lenox, South Dakota. So yes, we are proposing to do larger warehouse space than what was originally plotted on there, not plotted, but approved on there to do for retail. And we've gone over the floodplain plan more, and we feel that the way the floodplain works, good chunk of that land, like, I don't know if Toby, how do you get that picture up there? I think the picture that Toby had on there of the plot we have on there, that's about the only usage of land we have. We've already done the floodplain plan on it. So yes, so anything, right where the building is sitting, like where the one's chopped off even, that's the end of the floodplain. So we've already done that development and done the detention pond. And basically what we want to do with these is make them nicer shop condos, like no outside storage, more for like guys with collector cars and man caves. So to the north of there, you got the 9 Mile, the 9 Mile Creek development there. And then to the south, you have houses there too of it. And then Tom McNally with RBS is to the east, and he's actually the landowner on it. And he's in favor of what we're doing here. So basically, we want to make it like an HOA type deal, where there's no outside dress it up. I mean, if we want to put some stone around the outside of it, just not make them your typical contractor shop. At one point, we kind of triggered this too, is the city actually had reached out to Tom to switch land with him so they could put their maintenance facility in the same spot. And Tom said no. So that was what kind of made us thinking that, well, if they can do that and have a maintenance facility, we want to put something nicer out there and propose doing this. Like I said, we're gonna concrete the whole thing. I mean, there's gonna be no outside, like just no, like businesses basically ran out of it.
Okay. So where's Cody Trail at? I'm
Right,
trying
you know
to
where
find this
Squealers
on a
is?
bigger map.
You know where Squealers is? Just north of Squealers.
Okay.
That's Toby.
Oh, okay. Is this the piece here?
This is Cody Trail.
Oh, got it. So it's this piece.
I just know that these have gotten a lot of, like, kind of bad rep, I guess, when you drive around some of them, because there is tends to see a lot of cars sitting outside or outside storage, but we're gonna put that, and that can be added to one of the conditions too, is no outside parking. We just wanna make it more a man cave, your hobby shop type guy.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Yep, Mr. Green.
Good. Haven't seen you here for a while, so welcome back.
It's been good, hasn't it?
It's been a minute. So with this, is my understanding correct in that if you're looking at collector cars and things like that, then these will all then eventually be sold off for people to purchase as
Correct.
a man cave then?
Correct.
So you're just doing the initial building of all these until the owner or developer then starts to sell them off.
And Tom McNally and I have teamed up on this to do that and then sell them off. And then have an HOA in there as well and have stipulations in that HOA for like the no outside parking, snow removal, all that stuff will be in there.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Okay. Anyone else?
More of a comment since Corey's up here too. We've seen HOAs and stuff, and sometimes they don't get filed, on other things also. So I'm just throwing that out there too.
And we add that as.
It seems to be a trend recently, are these shops that you sell off and so how are you gonna set your, I guess that wouldn't be part of this application currently.
And obviously you guys were a part of the one on Highway 11 out there, and if you drive by that one's turned out very nice what we had done out there and concreted everything and the gates on there. I mean, there's no outside parking on that. I mean,
My concern gets to be with them, and I don't know that that's a discussion for tonight, but it's just like 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, how are these all gonna operate? But I suppose that
think-
won't be our issue.
I think there's one, so where RBS is now, I think to the east, northeast of town, like it's Tempe or whatever, there's gonna be a soccer field. I believe that's in now to add shop condos back in there too. They're wanting to, so it's, to us, it fits what's there. I mean, yes, they were wanting retail, but at the same time, you got Tom's, sanitation right in the backyard. And I don't know if that's gonna fit really a retail type thing, having a garbage service and right behind you.
Do you know what's going across the road to the north with all the cul-de-sacs, and is that housing, residential, I'm assuming?
I'm assuming that's housing.
Yep.
So our hope is, is to get some of those guys for the hobbies. Like I said, it's just trying to make it work for everybody, I guess. And yes, I had conversations with Kevin today and Toby both on this, and there's definitely some gray areas, I guess, on their parts. But we do have the floodplain analysis. That part's pretty much wrapped up on what
Alright.
needs to be done.
Very good. Any
Is
other?
there then the possibility, based on what you're building and the size, based on the map, that it would then, because kind of like we were seeing on Highway 11, it's expanding again, right? So is there room to expand beyond this after
No.
that? This is it.
What you see on the site plan I pulled up, that's all you can build on there because of the floodplain in this area. I mean, you can't add dirt, you can't get nothing to get this out of that floodplain. It's just where it's at, and what put a detention pond in and all that stuff. So there's no possible way to add any more to it. And I mean, there's just no way of adding nothing else. That's why it's kind of a weird spot for the land, considering where
Yep.
all the water is. I mean, it's retail space to me. I mean, now if it was off the T exit, I understand that, where you did everything there, but this here, to me, I mean, you got Tom to the backside with his business and another shop going up there, and just
Sure.
housing. We just want a nicer deal. Just want to build
Okay.
some more.
Just for interest of time, do you have anything new and pertinent that you haven't shared, that you want to share with us, or does anybody?
No, I
have
got
any more?
drawings here, but I don't think that's really irrelevant to what, I
Okay.
guess, I can leave them with you guys, but it's just showing the
Yeah, if you want to,
layout of
that'd
that.
Yeah.
So-
Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Groneman? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much, Corey.
I'm just
And yeah, if you got
hoping-
some stuff you want
Yeah,
to.
I'll get this. I was hoping I can just buy some steak from that guy, is all.
Yeah.
Tired of eating ramen noodles.
All right.
You guys can have these.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'll start them down here if you want to look. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. All right, seeing none, anybody in opposition want to speak against the application? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Justin Weiland, 600 East First Street in T, South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just going to interrupt you just a second. Mr. Brown, could you change that over to the zoning map? I think we might have a few questions on that.
Sorry.
Potentially. And then just zoom out a little bit. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
That's fine. I'm the T City Administrator with the
Okay.
City of T. Thanks for the ability to speak here. This is my first time speaking to this board in 13 years. I was down in Lenox previous to that, so happy to be back in Lincoln County. But I'm here to represent the City of T and our opposition to the request for a conditional use permit on Lot 2 of the Tempo Edition. The City of T is specifically requesting tonight for the Lincoln County Planning Commission to either table this or to deny this conditional use application, as this requested conditional use is not compatible with the City of T's comprehensive plan and our future land use that we have designated for this parcel. The City of T really, I just want to emphasize, with feel strongly about this. The City of T City Council meeting is occurring right now, and our Mayor, Casey Volker, asked me to be in attendance at this meeting to make sure that we were on the record, voiced opposition to this this evening. It's been mentioned, City of T, our Planning Director, Kevin Nissen, has been in contact with Toby and has provided some reasoning for our opposition, and so I'm going to go through some of those reasons right now. Okay, the use of a warehouse or storage type facility is not in compliance with the City of T comprehensive plan and the future land use that we have set out. that designated for this property. The future land use map of the city of T shows that it's community commercial. And this category of commercial is for local retail and offices that support residential districts that will surround this area in the future. This property really was planned as a buffer zone to that industrial use that's been mentioned, the RBS facility behind there. Also, this floodplain's been discussed. We have commercial corridors all up and down Heritage Avenue that have floodplain in the rear. And we just had a $4 million residential mixed-use commercial complex built right adjacent to a floodplain. So we've found a way to work with the floodplain in T. Please keep in mind that this property is on Heritage Avenue, and Heritage Avenue in this area, you might not see it now, but it's slated to be a major commercial corridor. Within our commercial corridors at T, we have language that, within our zoning ordinance, that creates higher building design standards. And so the intent is to ensure that there's kind of more aesthetic value to structures that are built within these corridors. They're called commercial overlay districts, and we have that within our zoning ordinance, within our city limits. And I will state that. This is what we plan within our corridors within the city limits. I guess one of the questions we're pondering, because this future land use distinction between what Lincoln County has in place and what the city of T has in place, we kind of question what's the purpose of the city going through the comprehensive plan process to plan these in the future and put future land uses in place if they aren't followed. So I just highly encourage the Planning Commission to really think about that and kind of how that relationship has existed between the city of T and Lincoln County, because it really goes against the vision of this planned corridor to have warehousing, storage type facilities. As mentioned before, the city has subdivision authority. This site plan has not been approved. We've established that this evening. A site plan was approved by our planning commission, but was tabled by the city council because they wanted more information about the property. We didn't receive any of that information, so we haven't gone back to the table to review those plans. And as described before, the original site plan called for a contractor's office and retail building. That current plan has been altered. That adds additional square footage in buildings and a different use. Therefore, a new set of plans and engineer review will be needed, and it will have to go back through the planning commission and city council. I think it goes without saying, the city of T has surrounded this. It's contiguous to our city limits. It's our opinion that this property owner should be working with the city of T and not necessarily going through this planning phase with stages with Lincoln County. We really think he should be encouraged to work with us through these planning phases. As mentioned earlier, so other properties just east of here, this property right here, that property owner has been working with the city of T to go through site development plans, development engineering plans. We're working on an annexation agreement with them right now. We're working directly with that property owner. We feel that this property owner should be doing the same thing with the city of T at this time.
Sir?
Yes.
So we limit
Yep.
comments to 5 minutes.
Yep.
So if you just wrap it up
Wrap it
quick.
up, yep.
But we are going to have some questions for you, I
Okay.
think, so if you
Yep.
just stay.
Okay. Yep. Toby and I have talked multiple times. I just want to mention this. It doesn't help us today, but this joint notion of actual joint jurisdiction, I think we should be looking into that. As mentioned before, there's conflicts with the city of T's definition of commercial, and there's conflicts with the Lincoln County's definition of commercial, and that's where we kind of run into some of these conflicts. We would not allow this type of use in our commercial district.
Sure.
Not only is the property abutting city limits, but this is sewerable. There's sewer 1,200 feet away. We do feel that this property owner shouldn't be going through planning phases without consideration of connecting to city utilities, right? I think that just goes without saying, and we haven't had any conversations with them about that, and those conversations need to occur. This is our future main commercial corridor for the city of T. This is someday, it's hard to vision it, but comparable to a Louisa Avenue. west of here, there's going to be a new elementary school. There's going to be a new road that ties into here. There'll be a major intersection there. This is not the type of use we want to see in that area. So we're just trying to look forward. We want to preserve it for more higher impact uses that are going to serve the neighborhood, the community. So we ask that you honor our request for this, for us to be able to plan this future corridor according to our future land use plan, our zoning ordinances, our subdivision ordinances, as was brought up by a member of the Planning Commission earlier, our engineering, our building standards. So we're asking you to table or deny. It's just too close to city limits to allow this warehouse type of use. It's going to be an issue that we're going to have to,
Yep.
we're there to have to wrap around it. I'm
All
sorry,
right,
sorry.
let's finish up here.
Yep, I'm done.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Does anybody have, and thank you for
Yep.
being here, Mr. Wyland. It makes our process a little easier when we have the person in opposition here. Does anybody have any questions? I know I have just a few.
My one main question has been answered, if it's sewerable or not.
Okay.
I understand, so I'm good.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, one of their questions was gonna be, so the utilities from the municipality are there and.
They're not
and-
directly on the property.
No, but-
They're 1,200 feet away.
They're
So
accessible.
it is like workable when we work with, we went all the way out to Baker Landing and got sewer to them. We have the ability to work with property owners to service that.
Because it's my understanding, like what would happen, okay, if this just got built as is currently with the county zoning and it's not annexed into the city, but then it does annex into the city? Or is there gonna be a requirement that they hook up to the municipalities'
Absolutely.
utilities at that point? So it'd be in the best interest to do it now.
It would be in the best interest to do it now. There's always ways that we can annex them in, work through these, and also service that and come to an agreed
Yeah.
upon service period date too. I think that you folks are probably aware of the city annexing in, other industrial parks, and it's just the process to convert all of that is so substantial and it's
Yep.
so burdensome on the new property owners. You think this group of HOA people are gonna agree on that 5 years from now to do all of these things they're gonna do? Eventually Heritage Avenue is gonna get redone. We appreciate what the county did with that resurfacing, but that's gonna get done in probably the next 5 to 10 years. There's gonna be a $200,000-300,000
Let me ask you another question.
bill on that. Yep.
If this was, and you've said that this is not a permitted, this wouldn't be the even allowed currently within city limits, but if something similar to it, whatever you would allow, I'm assuming you would require fire suppression?
I think that all depends on building code
does?
size and everything of that
Okay.
nature, yeah.
Yeah, so this is something we see quite frequently anymore, is, I guess I call it, premature development, and without the municipality having much say in it, and these things happen, and then when the municipality gets there, the municipality's like, well, we wish you would've did it this way. And as, just looking at this map, I just wanna ask you, this is obviously a problem, not just with this property, but you've got this problem other places.
Yeah, it was, premature,
Is-
that development that's occurred I don't think anyone had envisioned T to be out to where they
Right.
are now, and as you know, the
Is-
growth of the area is
Is
gonna
this one of the
continue.
reasons that the rural residential area, the little rural residential area up there, the yellow, that hasn't been annexed in?
The yellow, that's north of here?
Yeah, or just right across the street to the west.
East.
It's
I'm sorry,
west.
West.
Yeah,
This little yellow piece?
that's rural residential, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a building that's probably almost ready to collapse at this point, but,
But I'm just saying,
yeah, we're waiting
because
for-
of it's zoned that way, yeah, rural residential. I thought there was more houses there, but,
Yeah, there's just one home
okay.
that's probably will be converted to commercial at some point, we'd guess to. This notion of not being attractive, there's $2 million homes going up on that 9 Mile Lake addition, just north of this area. So, it's,
and I'm assuming, I asked Corey the question, but the cul-de-sacs across the road to the north, that's all slated for residential?
north, that's the 9 Mile Lake addition. So
Okay.
that's like that premier, there's multi-million dollar houses going up today.
Very good. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Wyland?
So I thought when Toby was first up here, he mentioned you guys are currently going through a process to update your comprehensive plan, is that correct?
We are, yes.
As well as your future land use map?
Yes.
So in
we're
your-
reanalyzing that.
Right, so in what you've told us today, are you talking about the future land use map as you guys are considering it, or as what's in place currently today?
As what's in place currently today.
Okay.
And do you think it'll change?
I would guess that that will remain the same. I think that whole corridor up and down what we call Heritage, which is TLS 460th, it will be mainly commercial or mixed use maybe as well.
What's I mean, when you look at this on a map, I mean, you can just see you guys have annexed
Yeah.
the municipalities surrounding this. I mean, what's the plan there? Are you, I
Well,
mean,
we have
within 5 years, you think?
85th is our boundary with Sioux Falls.
Okay.
And the city of T in Sioux Falls, we just opened bids and have contractors. There's gonna be a roundabout right here. And then this 85th Street is gonna be all new at the end of next year, leading up to this 85th Street interchange project that's gonna occur. And so this is all gonna be a brand-new, large, corridor off 85th Street, so just north of here.
But, so as far as the stuff that is not annexed, that's zone commercial.
yeah, I mean, we're
commercial
working
and
with prop-
industrial, what are you guys gonna, what's your plan there?
Like east of here?
To the
Like
south, this
This
stuff
Bill
that-
Haugen land?
It's
or
red and purple.
Your current, what's currently there?
Currently commercial and industrial, yeah.
I mean, those uses are there. I don't see us really
Can't do much. Do you think the
do
city
much.
will
I mean,
annex them?
we will definitely work with folks, but we deal with if we're gonna take over infrastructure, we require that it's built up to our today's engineering standards. So these folks would have to agree
So what-
to put in,
Yeah.
city-designed roads before we annex them in.
So you basically, what's probably more likely in the short term or maybe even midterm is that the city of T is gonna annex everything around that area, and the county is still gonna be responsible for an island right in the middle of the city of T?
I mean, I think we
Most
need to,
likely.
we need to continue working towards that. We went through, a pretty extensive,
Yeah, see what I'm
down at, or where is it here? Annexing the areas, where am I at? Where's, just to the north.
Yeah, the Harvard Industrial.
Yeah,
Park.
yeah, behind Harvard and everything there, so, yeah, this area. And so, and that was an instance where we got all the property owners to work together, but I know that was not an easy process.
Yep.
So, and the process is not complete yet. It's been a 3-4 year process.
Yeah, that was long and expensive.
Yeah. And we had COVID money to help pay and offset some of those costs and that. So I just, when you get north of here, I think we're gonna be, we definitely would like to entertain these ideas, but property owners are the ones that drive it, not the city.
Right, yeah.
So it's T, I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you, Justin, but T, like the city of Sioux Falls, they don't do a force annex. They work with the customers and they say, these are gonna be your costs, let's work together, and then
Yeah.
that's when they annex.
But
that's-
see, and you gotta understand from our standpoint, as we sit here, and if we're gonna, we approve these things to go in up there, and your municipality has the fire service, the police force, so on and so forth, to take care of your municipality, but then when things happen in these little islands that are the county's responsibility,
Right.
then that's a problem for the county. It's their problem, and so I guess that's why I'm asking the questions. This maybe even doesn't pertain so
It
much
doesn't
to this
pertain, but
application,
yeah,
but
good
we've never had a
conversation.
chance to ask you. So I better quit just out of my curiosity asking you questions.
Yeah,
Does anybody have any more questions pertaining to this application?
No, I'm ready to move on.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Wyland. Does anybody else want to speak? And maybe we could have you just come visit us one day for a work session, and we could ask you lots of questions. Does anybody else want to speak in opposition to this application? Please just state your name and address for the record.
Mandy Husby, 2730 North Vermillion Circle. So my husband and I actually own this first cul-de-sac just north of here.
Okay.
We build houses, we're developing that. We plan to build more houses out there. I guess I don't love the idea of storage units being there. I guess, yeah, you can have an HOA in place and they can be nice for the first however many years, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what are they gonna turn into? I guess that's just my negative side to it. And like he said, you know, we're building $1.5 million homes there right now. There's $2.2 million homes being built there right now. It's a pretty nice area.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, very good, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak in opposition to the application? All right, seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment, and we'll entertain a motion for approval in a second, and we'll have some discussion.
For discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
The other thing we could do, since we don't have a second yet, is if you guys would like to postpone this, we could postpone it definitely or indefinitely. Otherwise, if we want to use the table, then we'll have to wait till we get a motion in a second. So, again, we haven't had a second yet. If somebody would like to make a motion to postpone, we sure can.
I'll make a motion to postpone.
Okay?
Boots.
So we've got two motions out there. Does anybody want to second one of them?
I'll second the motion to postpone.
Okay. So the motion's been made and properly seconded to postpone this. I don't know that,
Now we can have discussion.
what's that?
Now we can have discussion.
We can have discussion on that, correct? Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, Todd, you made the motion, I'll let you.
Well, I think there's a lot of moving parts right here, and as we've discussed about that red area, how somewhere that comes into play with the city taking it in. To me, we just add another layer into to compound it. I mean, we've heard it's serviceable from the city. I think we've talked about these things that are out in the county that, it's, you know, if it's butted up to the city, it probably should work with the city to annex it in. You know, it's not out like 106 and Highway 11 with them other ones. And I just don't see it being a great fit right there unless it's worked in with the city with it being annexed in.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boots? Anyone else? Any comments?
So on my end, I'm looking at this property right here. It's not T's fault, it's not the county's fault for all the rest of the red around there. That's how development happens. We've talked a lot of times on this board about developing the city out, bringing infrastructure out and developing it as it goes. If we allow for this conditional use permit, then we're going against that. We're letting them build right next to city limits without city infrastructure, without city streets, without city sewer. So that kind of goes against everything we're saying. We have been saying. And on the other hand, too, we work closely with the city of T, and they're adamant that this is not a good fit. I agree. It's, with the addition of 85th Street coming, all the big businesses coming around the area, that development, that being a major corridor, I just don't see this as a good fit for them. So that's why I don't know if a postponement or anything will help.
Right,
Todd,
that's-
you even said yourself that it's not a good fit, so I don't know if
Well,
postponement.
I'll explain why I think the postponement is a good fit currently.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, go,
I'll take your comments first then.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
yeah, that's fine. So I think what we do with a postponement, you guys, is, we don't kill this thing dead and then if we were to vote on it and vote no, and I would have to vote no if it was in front of me today, I think if it dies, then that doesn't encourage either side to work together. If it's just postponed and it's out there and it can be revisited later, I think that encourages both sides to get together and work together and bring us a more presentable plan in the future. So I think that's why I'm in favor of the postponement. If we were to vote on it tonight, I would have to say no, just for all those reasons. I mean, I'm a dumb farmer and I can see this thing doesn't make sense where it's at. I can understand the city's, the city's want for this to not happen and wants to have some control over this. Makes perfect sense to me. And I think that we need to take the time. I don't see that there's a hurry here. I think we need to take the time and do the right thing and let the landowner and the city of T do what's, work together and get a amicable plan here. I hope that other people in our county, especially our county commission, is looking at this tonight and watching this. And these are issues that we come across every month, guys, and this is what's gonna continue to happen. And we're gonna continue to have these goofy looking maps, because we did things prematurely, it didn't make any sense. And we've done, as a board, we've tried really hard, to clean that up and make some sense of it. And so, again, this is just it's a glaring reason why I think that we take the time that we do, to study these issues. And, so with that, Mr. Green, we'll take your comments.
So what tabling versus postponing versus voting now, right? So are we
Yep.
saying under a postponement, like what are the requirements then next meeting?
There are none. A postponement can go on and on and on.
So it would just be on old business.
It would just continue to be on old business until we wanted to do something with it. A table, so what we would do if we were tabling is we'd get a main motion for approval and a second, and then we'd table that main motion. And that would take precedence over everything next month. And we would either A, have to remove it from the table and take care of it, or B, leave it on the table and then it dies, then it's just dead forever, right? So the postponement gives the applicant and the city of T longer than a month. If we were to use the table option, we would only, and the other thing with a table, there would be no time or there would be no, what's the right word? There would be no flexibility in changing the current application. And there would be no time for public comment. We would just pick up where we left off next month. So that's why I would be more in favor of a postponement versus a table. And a vote no, I suppose, would be my second choice, and then they just start over, right?
Well, if we voted no, they'd be able to petition it
to the county
to
commission.
the county commission.
Sure could do
right?
that, yep.
And at that point
That
in
is right.
time, that political process would play out, right?
Yep. And then start the whole process over again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I pulled up the comprehensive plan for T. It is obviously a different form of commercial, right, that they have listed there on their plan. It's pink, which says 10,000 to 50,000 square foot of basically your multi-tenant department type stores, right? I don't see the city of T and the applicant coming to terms of anything other than that type of use there based on, those of us that have traveled that road, however many times we've traveled that road and understanding, what that thoroughfare is. So I guess my preference would be just to vote on it and let the process continue to play out for the applicants versus what will happen if we don't vote on it.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second to postpone. We'll call the roll on that first. Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling,
No.
Commissioner Green,
No.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes. So it'll be postponed 3-2, and you folks get together and work it out.
Mr. Tiebreaker tonight, huh?
Yeah, twice. That never happens. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Number 3. Holy cow.
we'll be involved in that too as well. County staff will, so.
What's that?
County staff will be involved in that.
Oh,
process,
absolutely.
too.
Yeah, we sure hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
This
got so
next-
much extra time.
This next item is a conditional use permit for a kennel. This is, subject property is a little over 4,000 feet to the east of the city of Harrisburg. This property is right along Highway 11. Subject property is zoned A1 agricultural, as well as all surrounding adjacent properties, as well as across Highway 11 as well, too. Subject property is improved with a single-family dwelling, and I believe there's a shed on the property as well. So this application did come to our office as a compliance issue. Staff did receive a complaint that there was a operating business on the property. Staff did reach out to the property owner, did have some discussions with the property owner, did ultimately have the property owner submit a zoning permit, which is how our office utilizes to verify correct zoning on the property as well as any improvements on the property. Did identify that the applicant is indeed running a kennel and has been running a kennel. So as of course, how we resolve any type of issue like this is first step is to request that they submit an application for review and consideration. And then ultimately, that's kind of their right as a property owners to submit this type of an application. So the applicant did submit an application for a conditional use permit to operate a kennel. Specifically, the applicant operates a boarding service and a dog training business on the property. Hours of operation would be 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Employees would be those living on the site, as well as there's 3 part-time employees during the summertime months. Customers are on site by appointment only, so there's no drive-bys really to this type of facility. They typically just pick up and drop off dogs for training. Approximately 0 to 3 customers per week on the property, and then dogs are kept in the existing accessory building, which is noted on the property. This, as well as the property is kept and maintained. And what's a little unique about this is the property owner does own 9 dogs on the property as well. And again, as you're aware, is that Lincoln County doesn't have a restriction to the number of dogs or animals, domestic animals that can be kept on the property. So staff did review this application, did have some discussions, I want to jump again to that one, did have some discussions with the applicant as far as some of the concerns that staff had. But we did give you, there was some correspondence that we did receive from adjacent property owners. I believe one was in favor, and then there's multiple letters from an individual that's opposed to the application. Did really identify, though, that this does meet the requirements for typical type kennel for this. There is no setbacks for that. We do feel that if approved, the conditions on this would be typical conditions that would alleviate any of the concerns, at least that we've heard from the neighbors in opposition to this. So staff does recommend approval of this application to permit a kennel on the property. Do recommend those 6 conditions be placed on, and these are standard conditions that staff does recommend on a kennel type operation. But we do feel that these conditions should alleviate most of the issues that are there. Again, I don't know exactly how long that the operation's been in place, but I do know that it operated without a complaint. And again, the code enforcement is complaint-based in Lincoln County. And so once we did receive a complaint, we did investigate it. But beyond that, we did have a neighbor directly, I believe, to adjacent to the property that did submit a letter of support with the application. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time on this application.
Any questions for Mr. Brown?
I want
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. So we're talking about setbacks and whatnot in here, Toby, and I saw that picture right there. Do they meet setbacks with what's drawn on? Because it looks like it's awfully close to their property line.
Yep, so the accessory building, I believe, was permitted, so if it's in the rear of the property, it can be 3 feet to that side property line. So it does meet the setbacks preliminarily. But that's an existing building as well, too, so.
Sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Okay, thank you.
We'll ask the applicant to come forward, please. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Ty Leibel. My address is 27421 SD Highway 11. I operate a kennel facility specifically for training hunting dogs, mainly Labrador Retrievers. Once they reached out to me, I worked in accordance with the office to do whatever I could to do it, to get everything straight. So I utilize, the kennel building is insulated and climate controlled to allow for the comfort of all animals, and it's also done that way for any noise suppression that may be needed. And I train dogs up here from May 1st to roughly October 1st. Otherwise, I go down to Texas or I guide at another lodge during the fall to train dogs the additional time. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I have one, sure.
Go ahead.
So did you not know of the requirement to be able to kennel dogs on your property, or why now are we working to get into compliance, I guess is the question?
Yes, I was not aware of that. I just wasn't aware. As soon as I was made aware, I did and took every step I could to make everything in compliance.
So these aren't just your dogs you're training for sale, you're bringing in other people's dogs and training them, and then ultimately they go back to their owner, or?
Yes, they will go back to their owner.
On average, how many dogs would you say you have on your property? Because I think Toby had mentioned 9, but I think those 9 were your personal dogs, right?
Correct.
So how many total dogs are we talking?
If at the most would be like 25 dogs.
And that size building will hold that capacity?
Yes.
So when you're at your peak at 25 dogs, all the dogs are inside at night?
Yes, all dogs are inside at night. And any dogs that may bark, an electronic bark collar is utilized for that. I live 50 yards away from the kennel, and I wouldn't want to put up with that either, so.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Just one, since you're training May 1st to October 1st and then you go south. So the other 6 months, there's no dogs on the premises other than just yours, or?
From October 1st through May 1st, no. There's no other dogs aside from my personal dogs, and a lot of my personal dogs travel with me as well. So there may be a total of 3 or 4
Okay,
during those months.
thank you.
Okay.
And-
Very, go ahead, Mr. Green.
So then based on so we always get into the conditional use permit conversation of once it's conditionally permitted, we don't have a lot of control past that. So there's currently no plan for you then to, I guess I don't know if there's somebody that stays at that house also year round, but there's no plan then to like board dogs that aren't trained for hunting then either, correct?
I don't board any dogs that I don't train.
Okay.
And any other expansion plans, I have the property up for sale. Actually, I'll be moving hopefully this summer, so.
The property is for sale?
It's for sale right now, it's listed.
Okay, very good. That's good to know. Would you be opposed to a condition, that would limit the number of dogs?
Yeah, it depends.
Okay, all right, very good. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have, anybody in support of the application come forward? Okay, anybody in opposition of the application, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, I do have 3 letters or 3 messages, emails, whatever you want to call them, that I will read into record. The first one is from Seth Sundstrom. Greetings. I am writing in support of Ty and Kelly Leibel regarding their conditional use permit. I have nothing to say about the permit, but understand This was brought to the committee with a complaint about dogs barking all hours of the day and night. I live adjacent to the libraries and rarely hear dogs barking. I have never been disturbed by any of their activities. Regards, Seth Sundstrom, 27423 South Dakota Highway 11, Harrisburg, South Dakota 57013. The second, I don't know if I should read these. Yeah, the second, so there's two from this resident. This first one is dated 6/13, so I'll read that one first. To whom it may concern, I have attached a Word copy of this letter. I did receive your hearing notice for the dog kennel business on Highway 11. I'm sending this letter to be included in your meeting and used when making your decision regarding the use of the property for commercial purposes. I have sent a few complaints about the dog kennel operation. My complaints have not changed. This is a commercial business that cares for dogs and has a dog training program for their customers. The training program does include the use of shotgun training that is done most days of the week. These dogs not only bark during the day, but throughout the night. I am requesting that the county stop the use of this residential property for commercial purposes. This area of Highway 11 includes about 20 residential homes, all near the dog kennel. This kennel also brings more commercial and customer traffic to Highway 11, and it has increased traffic to a residential area that has several homes that are serviced by only one driveway approach. Thank you for your consideration regarding this situation. Regards, Lynn Hurley. And then, okay, that's the same thing. Then on 6/17, he sent another one. And it says, Toby, I sent a Word document regarding my concern about the Diamondback Kennels meeting tonight. I will not be able to attend this meeting, but I want to be sure you got my letter dated 6/12/2024. I have attached a copy to the letter for you. Just another note regarding this business. Last night at about 7, a truck and trailer loaded with dog kennels turned into this business. This is a common occurrence and another example of the nuisance that the neighbors must endure. Those dogs were very loud, as is normal when they receive dogs. Thank you for your consideration regarding our concerns, Lynn Hurley. So, that's all I've got. Does anybody else want to speak in opposition before we close the floor to public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the floor to public comment, entertain a motion for approval in a second, and then we'll have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Okay?
Green.
I'll second, juggling.
All right, it's been moved, properly seconded. We'll have discussion. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share before we vote?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Boots.
Now, we've talked about conditional use permits following the next person that has this property. We've
Yep.
learned that this property is for sale.
Yeah.
So that would go to the next one. Now, refresh my memory since can't remember for sure. Is that something that we can put in with some of the other conditions listed below that?
Like upon
Once-
transfer of title.
Yep, once this property is sold, this conditional use permit does not follow?
Mr. Brown? Would you answer that for us? I've got the exact same question.
Me too.
So, yeah, we were aware that the property is for sale. However, we want him to be in compliance. So if that's a month or 2 months from now, we will also talk with the applicant. That we'll have him do is submit a letter to our office to request that it be seized on the property once he's sold. So if you want to add that as a condition, you can certainly do that. Typically, a conditional use permit does run with the property, but in this case, we're having a lot of experience with people buying properties with conditional use permits.
Yeah.
So certainly you could add a condition there that the applicant submits a letter to seize the conditional use permit at time of sale.
And then it'd be done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, but.
Go ahead, Mr. Junglin.
Thank you. With that, it could also do a permanent lease to somebody else in the ownership when it change hands, and that could be another, I'm just
Yep.
there's other options out there.
Yep. Yeah, does anybody else have any comments, quick?
Might have a follow-up, but
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
so yeah, I think it's crazy that that we don't have, I mean, we have all sorts of limits on livestock, but we have no limits on dog kennels, I think is the most bizarre thing in the world to me, but, probably because we don't have very many of them. So, we've had a couple of these, in the past, and we've always put limits on them because, just for that purpose, they can transfer with the property. And just so everybody in this room knows, if we were to pass this as is tonight without anything if he sells this property, the next person to come in there, they're gonna have 500 dogs.
Yeah.
And that scares me. As good intentioned as the applicant is, we don't know what the next person, or the next person after that, or the next person after that. And so I won't support it, unless we can either A, put limitations, or B, I'd really like both. I'd like to put limitation, a number limitation, and then, I guess if we had that, we wouldn't necessarily, it could just continue to follow the property, but if we aren't gonna do that, I sure would like to add the condition that this thing terminates, upon the sale, so.
I had one more quick idea is,
Yeah.
what you could do is just add a condition that this permit will be reviewed in a year from now.
Sure.
And then that'll impetus us to work with him to, if he sells, we make sure we get a letter that just seizes it, so that we won't
Okay.
have to do that then.
So we could add that condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so just add a condition that this permit will be reviewed within a year of
Yep,
approval.
yeah, and we've done those before, and
Yep.
they work,
Yeah.
yep.
That's probably why there's some fireworks people here tonight.
Yeah, probably. Okay,
What's your thoughts on number then? Number of,
so I think if, I also will support it if it's reviewed in a year, because that gives us a chance to,
just knowing that in order for him to have a successful business, he's not gonna go above whatever that number is. right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
So would somebody,
I'll make the motion to add number 6 to have it reviewed 1 year from today.
okay,
Second, Green?
okay, so we're gonna call the roll on the added condition, okay? Number 6, that this thing will be under review, is everybody aware of that? All right, Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling,
No.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes. So that condition is added, and we're back to the motion to approve the whole application with that added condition. Do we have any more discussion? Or do we want to add any more conditions?
Yeah, to me, I'm completely with someone's livelihood. I mentioned that quite a bit. I'm an entrepreneur, and I mean, it's a great business, and I mean, I don't know anybody, but hunting dogs and everything, that's great. There's nothing's a good cause. It's just not the right location, as we talked in the past. If it's 4 dogs or 25 dogs, I don't know. It's just still a wrong location. So I'm, no matter what condition, I'm going to say no, so.
Okay.
I was thinking about adding conditions. I think I'll still be a no anyway, so.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else? I would agree with Commissioner Jungling. I think long-term, and I guess that's my thought process, is if this thing were to come back to us in a year, I think it's a different discussion. The only reason I would be supportive of it tonight is just to get it into compliance. I don't like that either, but the fact of the matter is that's where we're at, right? And that's the only reason I will support it. I'm not supporting it because I think long-term that that's where this type of business should be, for sure. So. Anything else?
Well, I'll just go on record, I guess, just to say,
Yeah.
the whole compliance thing, right? There's nothing to say that after tonight, the applicant, after this is approved, realizes, you know, what it takes and the scrutiny that goes into kennels and just decides to not sell the property, right? I guess we're back to reviewing this again in a year.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
I really struggle with this one just because it's, I appreciate what the applicant's doing. I am not a huge fan of doing things to just get them into compliance because
Right.
they have second and third order effects, right? When
Mhm.
you do that. So I'm still a toss up.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle with it too, because I also don't want to set the precedence that, well, you can just go do whatever the heck you want, and once you get caught, you come back in here and we'll rearrange it so that you're in compliance. But I don't think that that's what this gentleman was doing. But I will go on record saying that I'm not promoting that type of behavior, I guess.
No, and I agree with you guys. It'd be nice to get it into compliance and with getting to come back in a year and look at it again.
Right.
Because I myself, I don't think it's a good spot for it either. But again, it's something that's already started and we can cross that bridge in a year if he still has it or not. Because
Yeah.
I think from what I'm hearing in a year from now, it's going to go into compliance, but it could be a whole different ballgame when we discuss it next June.
I would have a hard time personally supporting it a year from now, as a long-term deal, I'm looking at this as a short-term compliance, makes it better for staff and for their office, gives this gentleman some time to figure out a different plan. But long-term, I would, and I want the applicant to know that I'd have a hard time supporting it long-term, so it probably is in best interest to find a different location, for you. For my vote, anyway. I can't say for everybody else.
I guess my question would be then for Toby. So absent compliance, so if it's voted down and the commission votes it down and it's not into compliance, what are the next steps for the applicant?
So really kind of address a couple things there, is kind of follow up is that, again, we're going through this request to get him in compliance, but also add conditions to it.
Right.
So more than likely, I would guess that we're gonna get a complaint probably right away, right? Because we do add conditions on here, the noise and all that kind of stuff. But we can't work with him until we get these conditions in place to do that. And for him to realize that he needs to improve upon some of those things that are there. As far as the, more directly answering the question, if it doesn't get approved, he has a right to appeal it to the Board of Commissioners. And at that stage, if he doesn't do that, at that stage, we direct that there be a cease and desist letter sent to the property to stop the use. If that answers the question. So, staff just feels, again, we fully recognize that we don't look at this as a way to get a guy into compliance. We look at this to give us some teeth to really work with him to say, look, because you have this permit, you have to meet certain restrictions here. We've got to cut down the noise. We can't be doing the fake dummy shots at night and scaring the neighbors. I mean, some of those things. The other part that makes this conflicting is when we say it's good or bad area, this is ag. This property's ag. There's houses there, yes, but the property's ag,
Yep.
So there's different, that's where the conflict that our office continually has is these properties are ag. I mean, they can be a nuisance in a way with agricultural uses, so. But I rambled there, but essentially, we treat this like any property. We give everyone the benefit of the doubt they can submit an application to pursue this. And then if it's denied, then we have the full force of the law to make sure he stops. But we view this one as more as like we want to get him into compliance now within the month or two that he's going to be living there. But we also want to make sure that he's cognizant that we do need to have restrictions on this, as we do put on every kennel. No no noise beyond the property line and things like that. So we just feel this more as a way to work with him more than anything, so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Does anybody have any last quick comments before we call the roll?
I'm probably going to change my mind.
I don't know what your mind was before, but we'll know once you vote what your original thoughts were.
No, I agree. This does give us the teeth to do something with it.
Yeah.
And the hard part is with these, right? Like, based on that property and the size of the property, it looks to me there's water on the property for training these types of dogs. So when you look at the property type, the unfortunate reality is it's probably actually a really good property for what they're doing. It just happens to have neighbors,
Yep.
right? And how we've dealt with some of these in the past, like, it's not like you can just pick up, there's 16 other dogs and take them to another place and then still try to train them. Like, no, like, there's, like, those dogs then go back to, whether they're owners and they have to find, so.
Yeah.
My 50/50 is probably more voting yes than.
Okay. Yeah, I don't wanna cripple the poor fella. This is his business and he needs a little time to get a plan together, so. Okay, with that, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Sweeter? Okay, so, let's review. We're voting, on an approval of the application with condition number 6 added.
Okay.
That it'll be reviewed within a year.
All right.
So, Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes, with the condition
Condition
6
Okay.
on it.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes. Thank you, Ty. Thanks for everything you've done to get this thing how it needs to be, and good luck on your pursuit or the sale of this property and a pursuit for a new one, so appreciate it. Oh, you do?
Is
Oh,
that in Lincoln County?
Question, great question.
no, that's great. Thank you. Okay, what are we on now? Just 4?
Yep, we're moving along faster. All right, very good. So, this next item is an application for a conditional use permit, or a conditional use permit to transfer one building eligibility. Subject property, I believe, is about 30,000 feet to the southwest of the city of Canton. Subject property is zone A1 agricultural, as is all surrounding properties. So, subject property, as you can see, there is a house that would be here on the property, and what the applicant is proposing to do is to parcel off this, where the house area is, and transfer an eligibility from this piece to the north. And my understanding is the applicant is selling both the existing house on the property and then this building site, which would be an additional building eligibility there. So as you're aware, this does require a conditional use permit to transfer from one parcel to an existing parcel. Requirement is that it's owned and contiguous to, or owned by the same property owner and contiguous to the same property as this is primarily. This also would, with this transfer of an eligibility, would require a replat of the property, which is currently in process. As I take that back, I think we just filed that, and that part is approved at some stage here. And so it does meet all the criteria for the transfer of the eligibility. So staff did have some discussions with the applicant, did review it for compliance with the ordinance. And again, this does have a few stipulations within the ordinance as far as what requirements are. And this would meet all of the standards for the transfer of the building eligibility once completed and parceled off and platted. So with that, staff does recommend approval of this transfer of one building eligibility from the adjacent parcel to this parcel with the 4 conditions that were listed in the staff report. So what I should have mentioned is we did post the property. Applicant did send notification, as all the previous applications as well. As of this meeting, staff hasn't received any comments on this particular application before you. But the applicant is here this evening with this application. So.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Mr.
Sure. So I didn't want to gloss over it. So we're moving 1, so there'll be 2 in that parcel in the corner, and then there's still 2 building eligibilities then remaining left in that larger parcel, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then this one would be, this will be split down, I think it's
Split in
about right
half.
here.
So there'll be
Yeah.
2 houses in that parcel.
Yeah, but he's gonna sell, the applicant currently lives on this property here. They're gonna sell that property and this property with additional eligibility, so.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, very good.
yep, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant to come forward. State your name and address for the record, Mr. Reynolds, and tell us a little bit about what you want to do here.
McCade Reynolds, 28762 475th Avenue, Beersford. So basically, through a series of unfortunate events, my father passed away. My wife and I, we had no intentions ever selling or moving away from this place, but series of unfortunate events, we want to get back to the home farm. The way to do that, I guess, we could rent our place. That seems more of a headache to us than just selling it outright. It was in the family. When that quarter was purchased by my great-grandpa, that acreage had come with it. They had rented it out to a bachelor. Long story short, they ended up just not wanting it. They sold that parcel. We had just bought it back in the family in 2017. Like I said, I had no plans of selling it, but now we're trying to sell it to move down to the home farm. We had parceled the home farm into 2 sections to keep the original house so Mom can stay there, and then we can live in the opposite corner of the yard with a small shop and a house that we're trying to build. And we're using the funds with this sale of the property and the other property with the building eligibility to have down payment for this new building shop that we're trying to do at our current property, which is 2 miles to the north.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Reynolds? Seeing none, thank you, McCade. Okay, does anybody want to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the floor to that, and we'll ask for anybody that is in opposition to the application to please come forward. And seeing none, we'll close the floor to all public comment, and we'll entertain a motion for approval with a second, and then we'll
So
have
moved with
discussion.
4 conditions, Green?
Okay,
Second, Boots.
been moved, properly seconded. Any discussion? Any comments? Anything?
Nope.
Mr. Green? Nope, makes perfect sense to me. I see what he's doing. I know the property real well, and I think it'll be just fine. So, with that, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes. So, thanks, guys. Thanks for sitting through everything to get to your application. All right, Mr. Brown, we're moving on.
Okay, this next application is a conditional use permit. This will be for a, well, that's wrong. So, 41. Okay, this one. This is a conditional use permit for a campground. That's not the right one there. Okay. Subject property, and that's the wrong map on there, sorry about that, but subject property is about 5,000 feet to the west of the city of Worthing. This is just off the Worthing exit on the interstate. Subject property, as you can see, is zone I-1 light industrial. Surrounding properties to the north are zone C commercial. This property sat, this entire chunk of property sat vacant for a number of years. And then it was purchased by a different individual, reparceled, and then the road was extended, and then we just approved some warehousing would be just to the south of this property that was approved there. So this particular property is undeveloped. It does, and this, I should point out that this picture that you're looking at here, the county did fly new aerials in April. So when you go to the parcel browser, those are all within a few months of development. So as you can see, this road was improved, as well as there was some detention placed onto the properties to address any stormwater runoff that would be on the properties. This particular property, it's the one, it's to this area here. This is currently one parcel together, but what the proposal is just to put the campground on this particular property here. So the applicant did submit a concept plan or a site plan with the application identifying that they would develop a campground on the property, would develop essentially lot spacing there. In discussions with the applicant, it's identified that this would be more geared towards a long-term rental, so it's really, kind of maybe, I would say year-long, but we have winters here, but it'd be more long-term camping instead of short-term camping that would be on the particular property. So staff did review the application, did have some discussions with the applicant. Did identify that, and as I mentioned this before, is it meets all the standards for a campground in the ordinance, but there really isn't any standards in the ordinance for a campground. There is standards within the building code that we will enforce that requires that there be an emergency shelter, a safety shelter placed on the property. That's typically handled through beefing up the restroom areas, gathering spot within the area, the park. So essentially, staff does feel that this application meets the requirement for the construction and operation of a campground. Do recommend that though those 5 conditions be placed on the permit to ensure that they address any conditions with it. This particular property is a developed commercial industrial park. There is a number of uses within this park that we do have existing conditional use permits for, as well as we do see this as, primarily warehousing, contractor shop. There's some open storage there. So we do have a lot of applications within there. There really is no requirement for location of a campground as far as setbacks and those different types of things or that. Really just feel that we want to make sure that the campground is improved with identifying that it is a campground, but then also that there be a storm shelter constructed on it. So that's really staff's concern at this stage. We did post property. The applicant did notify adjacent properties. As of this meeting, staff has received really no correspondence or communication regarding this particular application. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown? All right, thank
Okay,
you.
The applicant is here tonight.
All right, we'll ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
Good evening. My name's Eric Willardson. I'm with Willardson Lund Engineering in Sioux Falls, 902 South Cleveland. Representing the owner of the property. The owner of the property, Mr. Smith, is here tonight as well. As Toby said, he's proposing to construct a campground. There's approximately 20 to 25 spaces that we think we can fit on there, as well as we've indicated that there will be a storm shelter as required. We also have contacted Lincoln County Rural Water, and they've assured him that there is plenty of water for that type of an operation to be able to sustain campers or whatever in that area. We plan for detention on the site. Other than that, I guess we just entertain any questions that you might have. And again, Mr. Smith is here as well.
Any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Sweeter.
Being close in proximity to that, I am concerned about, you're asking, or you're saying that the majority of it would be long-term. And given that area being secluded, it's not out in the open, what kind of regulations are you setting? Is there going to be somebody on that property overseeing it 24/7? It's just a very secluded area to put long-term camping in. And I'd like to know what you're going to do for protection.
And I think his intent is for long-term camping. There may be some short-term transient type camping while it's being developed. As for will there be someone on the site 24/7, I wouldn't think so. Any complaints, I guess, would be handled by the sheriff's department.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to come up, or
That would be good.
are you the owner? Yeah, if you'd like to come up here, maybe answer some of Commissioner
So
Sweeter's
overall, we're gonna have site security cameras for looking at all access coming and going. We would have pretty much daily, people on site, myself, my wife, for maintenance of restrooms, other facilities. And, we've entertained the idea of having basically a campground host that would be on site 24/7, as a semi-permanent resident there, and they would get discount for staying there and monitoring as well, but.
Well, it is a very secluded area, and I think that's a concern, especially if, and what are you going to do when you entertain long-term camping and then short-term camping if somebody comes in to, camping? I know how camping goes. You have a party and get kind of wild and.
There'll be very strict no tolerance rules. For quiet time, it's going to be probably 8 to 8, something along those lines, where you're gonna get one warning. And if there's any inappropriate behavior, loud music, whatever, they're gonna be gone. So it's going to be a quiet campground, summer workers, folks that just wanna stay in their camper for the summer, for the area. We would, like I said, entertain people coming and going that need a place, if there's open spots for a weekend or whatever, they're coming and going, just traveling through. But it's going to be a strict no tolerance site.
And you'll have some way of having names and addresses of people to know about those people?
Everything's going to be online. So, yeah, everything's going to be documented. Reservation system will all be online through managed websites with that, so.
Okay.
Based on,
Commissioner Jungling is next.
Will you have, escape my brain now, the camper disposal when you
Waste?
drain your,
So
Yeah,
every,
gray water?
yep,
Yeah.
every site's going to be a full
Gray water.
hookup, which
Okay.
will be water, electricity, and your sewer lines.
so it'll
So,
be at each site?
yeah, everything will be at each site with the septic system as drawn going to that north corner, but that will all have to be engineered through the state and approved that
Gotcha.
way as well.
Okay. Commissioner Green?
so I guess ideally, based on what Commissioner Sweeter was saying, you know, the ideal clientele out there that's doing, I just, you know, to me, it's just kind of out there, out in the middle of nowhere, like what is the ideal clientele for you that's doing?
I'd like to have monthly stays where people are like, you know, a lot of workers come up and work for the summer and live in their camper instead of renting apartments or staying in hotels. It's gonna be similar to, the campground out on the Canton exit, out on 18, next to the truck stop. Red Barn Campground is a lot of long-term. It's not gonna be your Jellystone type campground, which is activities and a lot of weekend family kids. Tower Campground example, right in the middle of Sioux Falls. We're gearing towards longer stay. Come stay for the summer, work, if you're possibly living out of your camper possibly. But there's also going to be restrictions on, you can't bring in your 1972 beat-up camper.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna have restrictions on, it has to be, my first thought was 15 years old or less. And we would have basically an option to submit a waiver or approval. Say you have a collector's, Airstream or something that's a very, it's a nice antique basically, or something that's kept up, but that would have to be approved to be on this site, so.
Very good. Any other questions for the applicant?
And
Commissioner
none of
Slater?
the businesses had any concerns evidently about having a campsite in between all of these businesses?
Nope, it's,
Some of us have concerns, that's why we're here tonight.
All right, very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, now, does anybody in favor of the application want to come forward and speak? You want to state your name and address for the record again?
Corey Gronwald, 27404 470th Avenue.
You know, one meeting we made, the engineer for South Lincoln Rural Water, I think he did it 8 times, so you're on your
Feeling
way.
better, I'm part of that deal too. I've actually for it. When I was building my house, I stayed at the Red Barn Campground, which is just 2 miles north of me. And that was all long-term stays. And I will say the campgrounds are, everybody there, that's pretty much forms a community. You know, there's construction guys in and out. I was only stayed there for a summer while I was building mine, but it was very low-key. And it seems a lot less, I guess, Party America type campground when you have the weekenders come in. So that's really all I got for it is I would highly, I think it's a good idea.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else in favor, like to speak on the application? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask anybody in opposition to the application if they would like to speak. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mike Fellmeyer, 28022 Boondocks Avenue. I am the property immediately to the east of where this is proposed to be. We're a manufacturer. We run from 6:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. We make a lot of noise. We have trucks in and out of our yard. I work Saturdays. I am struggling to understand why anybody would want to camp next to us making as much noise as we do as an industrial facility. And I know myself being there on Saturday afternoons and late in the evenings, the Bolte's people work similar hours to me and they're doing stuff as well. So the notion that we're gonna have construction people setting up for 30 days at a time or 15 days at a time, increasing the traffic in and out of there, to me, I see it as somewhat of a security risk because I've got equipment sitting out on the ground literally right across the street. It's a bit of a head scratcher to me, and so I guess because I don't understand the validity, I guess I question it going forward.
All right, very good, thank you. Does anybody else in opposition want to come forward and speak? Just give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Chris Bear. My address, our work address there is 28020 Boondock Avenue as well. I'm the manager there at Piper Auction Realty. We as a company and as partners was fairly neutral on this situation until I came to the meeting and listened to some of the applicant. There's some verbiage that we are very concerned about. One is the word transient. We're not at all in favor of transient traffic through a commercial area. And the other term that I don't care for is the long term. I know as a business owner, having the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department monitor that and falling back on the Sheriff's Department isn't the greatest in the whole world. They do a great job for us. But also in saying that, most of the problems that we've had out there, when we've had problems, have occurred after business hours. There's no lights on that street. There's also a high-pressure gas line that goes through part of that property. The traffic, we feel, would be pretty substantial with 30 units in there or 25 units in there. Both the morning and the evening traffic, along with the heavy traffic that Mike had talked about, and also with Bolte's. The road that goes back into that property is a private road from Highway 42. Therefore, it's not a county-maintained road, and so there's snow removal issues there in the wintertime, especially when there's heavy snow. The reason why I know that is I'm the guy that moves the snow off the road. Right, Mike? And so I just, for me, again, when I came into this meeting, I was pretty neutral with no HOA enforcement in that development. To having people living back there really kind of on a permanent basis, it would not be advantageous to us. I think that the campground would add value to our properties. It would be helpful on a tax basis, but I think that the cons outweigh out the pros. So that's our position as a property owner there. Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. Anyone else in opposition like to come forward and speak? All right, seeing none, we're gonna close the floor to public comment, and we'll entertain a motion for approval, and then we'll have a discussion.
I move for approval, well, with the conditions, Jungling? Other conditions, yeah.
Second, Green.
All right, it's been moved, properly seconded. Does anybody have any comments? Commissioner Sweeter?
I just feel that it's a very secluded place. With businesses all around it, I think security is an issue. I understand there's a need for long-term camping, but if you look at the other long-term camping, like at Countryside or whatever, they're all out in the open where people can see what's going on. In this case, that's not the case. It is, I would have a hard time supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
I concur with Commissioner Sweeter. While I see the need, not a huge fan of the location, I guess, is probably my biggest concern. The already strained Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, and, when you have 25 to 30 additional little pods of people out there, and the strain that provides, I don't think I can support it.
Okay. Mr. Jungling?
Yeah, I'm still thinking, I know it seems like it's really not a right place at all. It should be industrial area, but I do know there's a need, and I do understand the community groups you would hope they'd govern each other, take care of each other, and regulate each other, but I'm having a hard time getting past the location.
Okay. Two thoughts I have. Because basically what we'd be doing is we'd be approving a rural residential without making a rural residential. And if this applicant was asking to rezone this to rural residential, what would our votes be? I know what mine would be. Again, and then my second point is I surely don't think that we need to stress the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department any more than it already is in these types of areas. And so, I think that would be tough. I'd rather see it in a municipality that could handle this type of, well, it's basically residential development. I mean, call it what it is. That's what we're doing. I do see there's a need, obviously, because wherever there is one of these things in the county, they're full all the time. And so I think it would probably be a great business. I just, I don't today know where maybe a better location would be, but I sure don't think this one would be for me. So that's just my thoughts. Any other comments? Okay. Commissioner Green?
So this is two parcels, so this is maybe a question for Toby, right? So on the initial map, or it's one parcel, but it's two sides of the road. So if approved, and I know it talks in here about site plans, so that whole site plan thing specifically says that, it is just this one part of this parcel, right? That's how we're differentiating that?
Yeah, I don't believe that the applicants, well, I know the applicant hasn't, but the owner probably hasn't purchased this particular piece yet, to the best of my knowledge. So then they would parcel that off and split it up into that.
Oh, I see. I see.
I believe so, yeah.
It's contingent upon approval.
Contingent on sale. yeah,
Okay,
approval, yeah.
that makes
Yep.
sense. So this the Kushner Investment Company, the owner is not the applicant. Okay, very good. All right, with that, we'll call the roll. We start with you, Mr. Green?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Jungling?
No.
Commissioner Boots?
No.
Commissioner Sweeter?
No.
Commissioner Scott is also a no. So, thanks, guys, I appreciate it. We'll move on to number 6. Mr. Brown?
Okay, this next item is an application for fireworks sales. Make sure I get that one right there. Okay. Subject property is about 10,000 feet to the south of the city of Worthing. Subject property is zoned C commercial. Subject property is improved. This is a C-store gas station complex. Adjacent to the west of that is the campground at the Canton exit. So applicant is submitting an application to do temporary fireworks sales. We'll be locating a temporary structure in this approximately this location on the property. The use would be fireworks sales between June 27th and July 5th. Hours of operation would be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. With occasional operation to 11 p.m. Approximately 2 to 4 employees on the site, depending on availability. Sales are conducted as walk-up purchases on the property. Again, this is a conditional use for fireworks sales on the subject property. Historically, this property did receive conditional use permits for fireworks sales, but those all expire. The ordinance does provide or prescribe that if a use is not operated within 2 years, that the use would expire on the property, and so that was the case with this one. The applicant did submit the application. Applicant did notify all adjacent properties. Staff did post a property as of this public hearing. Staff has received no comments regarding this proposed application. This does meet the requirements for fireworks sales under the zoning ordinance. As you're aware, with fireworks sales, though, is that the state does have some requirements, additional requirements that the applicant does have to meet for that to conduct the fireworks sales on the property. With that, happy to answer any questions. Staff does recommend approval of this application with the 7 conditions that were listed in the staff report. With that, happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Toby. Okay, can we ask the applicant to come forward? You've been sitting here a while.
Mike Denning, 6605 West 52nd Street, Sioux Falls. This is a lot better than last year when I came, if you remember.
Yes, sir.
It was the night when I think it was carbon.
Oh, carbon pipelines.
And when I got here, I'm thinking, there's a lot of people opposed to me.
A lot of people don't like fireworks, right?
Because of a technicality on my part, it didn't go through, but I'm back.
Very good.
I'm asking for your vote, please.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
It's just good to see you back.
Yeah. Anybody? Okay, thank you. Does anybody in favor of this application want to speak? Anyone opposed want to speak? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion and a second for approval?
So move with 7 conditions, Green.
Second, Boots.
All right, it's been moved, properly seconded. Does anybody have any discussion or any comments?
Looks like the right spot to me.
Yep.
Better than last year.
Yeah. All right, very good. Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott's also a yes. Move on to item number 7.
Well, so to follow up, this is the site from last year. So this next conditional use permit, this is an application for a conditional use permit for fireworks sales. Subject property is adjoining the city of Harrisburg to the east, south, and west. So this is just outside the city limits. Subject property is Zone C commercial, as well as the property to the north, as well as that. And then this property that's in front of it, that's just right away, since the state did redo Minnesota Avenue through there. Subject property is improved. There is a building on the property that does auto repair out of that building. The applicant did submit a site plan. This is the same as last year's, that they would operate temporary fireworks sales out of a temporary structure on the property. This would be the same, and when I went through the previous application, same hours, same types of operations, same types of employees on the property. If you recall, last year, it was really just kind of an issue with the notification issue that it was denied at that time. So there is really no objection to the location of this property or the use of it. So again, we did post property. The applicant did notify adjacent property owners. As of this public hearing, we received no comment on this particular application. It does meet the requirements. There are additional state requirements that the applicant will have to review and meet with state officials. With that, staff does recommend approval of this application with the similar 7 conditions that were on the previous one. With that, I'd have to answer any questions you have for staff.
Any questions? All right, very good.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Can we ask the applicant to come forward again? Give us your name and address one more time for the record.
Mike Denning, 6605 West 52nd Street, Sioux Falls.
All right, very good. And I'm assuming this is all same as the last one?
Exact same as last year.
Yep. And if I remember right, and Toby did hit on it, the reason for denial last year was just based on the application was turned in late, I believe.
Yeah, you have to get letters out to everybody 10 days in advance.
Right.
And they sent the letter, but it went to my spam and I didn't see it.
Sure.
And
Okay.
that's my fault.
All right, very good, thank you. Anybody in support of the application come forward? All right, seeing none, anybody in opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment and entertain a motion for approval.
Approved, Jungling.
Second, Green.
All right, it's been moved, properly seconded. Any discussion? All right, Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes, so, thank you, sir. Good luck. All right, number 8. Mr. Brown.
Moving.
Okay, this last item is an application for a public hearing for a conditional use permit. This is an application for a kennel. Subject property is about 30,000 plus feet southeast of the city of Worthing. Subject property is zoned A1 agricultural as well as all surrounding properties. Subject property is improved with a single-family dwelling on the property. And a substantial tree grove to the south there, as you can see. And if I zoomed out, this is pretty rural in this type of area. Not much density as far as housing in this area, particular area. So the applicant did submit an application for a conditional use permit to operate a kennel on the property. They would be operating out of the accessory building, which would be just to the, I'll call it to the north of the single-family dwelling on the property. So the applicant is, this one's a little different kennel than we've had before. This one's more of a, what I would call their breeding dogs to then sell on the property. So they're really not boarding any particular dogs on the property. But as far as the details, as far as the operation, that was included with the application. But it's a 24/7 type operation, but mostly there won't be any customers really coming onto the property. It's really just for them to operate and breed dogs on the property. So staff did review the application, did have some discussions with the applicant, did identify that this does meet the requirements for a kennel type operation. And so staff does recommend approval of this with the 6 conditions that were listed in the staff analysis. And again, we don't really see any impact to the area with this operation, since there really won't be any traffic or anything associated with it. It's mostly just kind of a breeding operation, which is different than we've had for kennel type operations. But we feel that the conditions that are placed on this permit should address any concerns that neighbors might have with the application. Staff did post the property. The applicant did send notice within 500 feet. As of this public hearing, or as of this moment, staff has not received any comments regarding this application. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
One question I have, Mr. Brown. So the use of the dog kennel, that's permitted in the agricultural district, correct? That-
No, they need a conditional use permit for the kennel in the egg district. Yep.
But it can be in any district?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, then that unanswers my question. Very good. The only thing I was gonna say is there, because what I see with these dog kennels is the potential, like this situation looks great, there's no neighbors, so we don't have to worry about it. But as people maybe would move in and build around there, I know that in the ag district, there's the right to farm verbiage that goes along with that. And so if you're gonna build a house next to an existing farm, you're basically agreeing that there's gonna be farm stuff happening 24 hours a day around you, and you know this before you moved into it, so don't complain about it. And I'm just wondering if any of that verbiage exists for like this type of use. I mean, that wouldn't be part of there isn't anything like that in the right to farm.
No, I mean, the right to farm covenant is for agriculture permitted use.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
This would be a conditional use, which would be
Okay.
that requirement, yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So, Toby,
That's a good question.
with,
Thanks. Once in a while, I have one.
so for a kennel, these are personally owned dogs, right? So is it because it's commercial, or since they're all personally owned dogs until the point that they're sold, and then I would assume just no longer on the property, why the need for a permit for a kennel if they're personal dogs?
So the ordinance for definition of kennel reads, and I'm not gonna get it completely, but it uses the word remuneration, so for dollars. So eventually they're gonna sell these dogs, so that's what triggers it to really be a kennel. It's not truly sometimes uses when we hear kennel, we think it's dog boarding, but in this case it's not. But it is fits under what the definition of a kennel is, under the zoning regulations. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if they hadn't been selling them eventually, which is their goal, then it wouldn't be a requirement. If it was just their own and they were breeding their own dogs, then it wouldn't be a requirement. But, yeah, so, and I think that's, I think, you know, in defense of the previous application, a lot of people think I'm moving out into the country and I can raise dogs and do, you know, dog training and those different types of things. But that's why it is a conditional use permit, because we need to monitor and regulate it really from that aspect of it, so.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, can we ask the applicant to come forward, please? You've really hung in here.
I had no choice. Really got number 8.
Just state your name and address for the
Dawn
record.
DeBoer, address is 28627 475th Avenue.
Okay.
So as everybody kind of has the gist of it, we are here to ask for permission, not for forgiveness. So we called the zoning zoning right away to figure out what's our next step before we go and make anybody upset. So thus we are here this evening. But really what it is it's non-existing at this time, which gives everybody, the neighbors, you guys, us, the leeway to build it to see fit. And what we did bring to the table is, a structure that's about the size of a single stall garage. And we have the opportunity to insulate it, heat it, cool it, soundproof it, those take care of all those issues or concerns. We did also implement double blind, so basically 2 fenced-in areas, so to provide perimeter, security. That was something that we had heard from actually speaking with some of the neighbors of a concern of a previous, kennel operation in this area, where they were concerned that the dogs would get out, and what kind of dogs we do breed. The French bulldogs, English bulldogs. Yes, for sale, so that's why we're here too, but also wanted to go on record saying that our vet is a USDA inspector. I plan to follow her guidelines to a T, even though it's not necessarily a requirement under this. I know that she also inspects another kennel in Lincoln County, CK Kennels, but we do not plan to have, it's not boarding, it's not grooming, it is just a breeding, we're just breeding our dogs. And at this time, we plan on operating a smaller scale. Would have no problems if you wanted to implement a number, like a head per se.
Okay.
No problems implementing that. At this point, don't foresee it getting past the 20 mark. That's what we hope to operate at. Let me see my notes. Really, we're looking to expand to improve the living space, give them more space, give them quality of life, to implement better breed standards and expectation of care. So with that being said, any questions?
Very good. Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Ms.
I assume we're gonna get to a number
Yeah.
at some point, right? So, so how many, I don't know the terminology, so how many breeding dogs would you have?
I wouldn't want to exceed 20. Right now, I have 10.
So you currently have 10 female dogs?
Correct.
And the average litter size?
4 to, average is about 4. But you could have one that has 8. They throw you a Hail Mary sometimes, but it's not, we're talking about 32-pound little French bulldogs, but, English bulldogs.
How long
but-
do you keep the little ones?
The USDA certifications is 8 weeks. I like to keep them until 10 to 12 to make sure
Okay.
that, they're up to date in standards. And then really our vet likes to give them their health checks at 8 weeks. So it's really not, ethical to be sending them out if they haven't had their 8-week check. And that extra 2 to 4 weeks, that just gives them more time with me to meet their needs, to make sure they're up to date on all their vaccines. If they're traveling outside, they need that health certification from the veterinarian in order to fly on an airplane or to be ground transported, to comply with all of those regulations.
And then, pardon my ignorance, so do you breed all the females at the same time? So are the litters spaced out? How does that work?
Ideally, they will be spaced out sometimes. Unfortunately, it is like a sorority house and they sync up. However, that's not saying that all 10 of them need to be bred. That's at my discretion as well. So ideally, No, it would like to be quartered out. That would be ideal.
How many litters a year will, one female have?
1 to 2,
Okay.
depending on their heat cycle and when they come back into heat.
What verbiage or what age is a dog considered an adult dog? Is it 12 months or?
That is what
10,
AKC standard is, but I have all my dogs OFA certified, which they cannot meet their until their second birthday, they cannot pass, their last OFA test. So they
Okay.
cannot do that until they are 2 years of age.
Well, I'm just thinking if we're gonna, maybe a way to separate it is we put the number as adult dogs. And then that's defined by anything over 12 months or something like that. Okay. All right, yeah, I guess those are some of the questions I had. Does anybody else have questions for the applicant? No? Commissioner Sweeter?
So are the dogs, are the bred dogs housed differently than the dogs that are not bred at that current time, or?
So, no, I mean, they are separated into, if they are whelping, there are whelping pens versus their kennel runs. Is that, I guess, what you're asking?
Yes.
Yep, correct, yes. So the whelping mothers have a larger pen for whelping. I guess a similar thing would be like a hog confinement, maybe that's not right, but it's like an 8x8 pen where they can, freely move back and forth with their litter and have a free run versus their 4x4, which is USDA standard, if they're not whelping per se.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. At this time, we'll ask anybody who's in favor of the application to come forward.
State my name.
Yep, you gotta have your name and
McKay
address
Reynolds,
again, Mr. Reynolds.
28762 475th Avenue, Beersford.
Yep.
Not necessarily here for or against, just basically it was a good excuse to finally meet you guys. We're just kitty corner from each other, but yeah, I don't see any reason why not to. They personally took the time to go around, talk to all the neighbors, give goodie bags, talk to everybody. Kind of told them, explained what they're doing. Everybody heard kennel and, tails go up in a bush sometimes. So, but they did a good job going around talking to the neighbors. They've been out here for about a little over a year now, probably time flies, but they haven't caused any issues, been good to us. I operate a hog confinement, spread hog manure. We got the dairy chopping alfalfa 4 times a year. They haven't complained a single bit, so we probably annoy them more than they annoy us, but, so, just kind of stood up here to stand up for the neighbors. So.
Very good, thank you. Okay, anyone else wants to speak in favor? Dale, you've been sitting here all day. You don't get, you don't got nothing to say? Dang it. Okay, so anybody in opposition, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment, entertain a motion for approval, and we'll have discussion. And I guess I will say before if somebody would want to, just to speed the process up, if we do think that we're gonna add a condition that's gonna limit the number of dogs, why don't we just add that with the original motion? You know what I'm saying? So your original motion would be for approval with the addition of condition number 7. That would be, we could do it that way, or you just, we can have that discussion separate too, however you want to do it.
The issue is if you don't like that condition.
That's true, then you gotta vote the whole thing
The
down.
whole thing.
I agree, yep, so you're right, Commissioner Jungley, it's better to just, let's make the motion to approve as is. And then if we wanna add another condition, that way we're not tied to denying everything.
I'll make the motion to approve with the 6 conditions.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, it's been moved and properly seconded. So now we'll have discussion. And I guess I'll just start by saying, so I would be in support of an addition. And it sounds like the applicant would be too, of a condition with a number attached to it. And it kind of sounds like that number is 20 to 25 adult dogs And I think that's how, maybe we could do it because we aren't gonna know if a litter size is 4 or 8 or whatever, and those dogs aren't gonna be around there permanently. So I think that would be easy enough to do, to add that condition, and we would just define an adult dog as 12 months and over, or something like that. Or 20, yeah, but whatever you guys think. But I think that's our way, otherwise we're gonna have to make it for 100, and I think that's too many, because if, just from a next owner thing, right, then you could have 100 adult dogs hanging around. And it sounds like these people do a wonderful job, and, you know.
What's the number?
Well, it's kind of 20 to 25, is that kind of what? Yeah, okay. I think that gives her a little room. She's not there right now, but gives her a little room. What do you guys think? Or is it necessary?
Yeah, we can do condition number 7 to limit the adult and male, the amount of adults to 25.
Okay. Are you making that motion, Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second, Boots.
Okay, it's been proved, properly seconded. So the roll I'm gonna call right now is for the added condition number 7. That will be worded that the application will be limited to 25 adult dogs. Basically 12 months and older. So with that, Commissioner Jungling,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes. It doesn't matter, I guess. At this point.
You don't seem so enthused about it. Okay, Commissioner Scott is also a yes. So we've added the condition number 7 now. Now we've got a main motion for the whole application with the added condition. And so is there any more comment on that, or do we want to just call the roll?
My only, so I'll just clarify my hesitation, right? So my only comment is when you start to get into breeding dogs versus personal dogs, and then, at what point is there the differentiator between one, I don't have dogs, but once a dog gets so old, I assume you stop breeding it, and then it's there, so next thing you know, there's 30 dogs there, because now 5 of them are your own personal pets versus breeding dogs, but.
Well, I think this is for that property, so I'm assuming dogs, adult dogs, yeah. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we could have a building over here that just says, well, these are our personal dogs, and we got 800 of them, and we just have our 20 business dogs over here, so. No, I think it would be with the whole property, so.
So I'm overthinking it. I got it.
I don't know about overthinking it, but I always like you, Mr. Green, because you think, you always come at a different angle, and that's good. We need that. So, with that, any more? Can we go ahead and call the roll? All right, Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling?
Yes.
Commissioner Boots?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Yes.
Mr. Scott is also a yes. So congratulations, guys. Thanks for sticking it out with us tonight. I apologize, you had to be last.
Apologize on behalf of Toby.
Yeah. By the way, it wasn't our fault. You guys did. If you're mad at anybody, be mad at Mr. See you, Dale. Have a good night. Dale is our maintainer operator for Highland Township.
Oh.
All right. Okay, so with that, we don't have any old business. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Green?
Second, Jungling.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Good night, guys. That was a good night.